Hey there guys, this is Flamzeron, aka YouTube's Tasuke, and what feels like, to me at least, like long months of trying to play this game, I finally finished Dragon Quest Heroes, even though I think it's only been like a few months, I'd say. It came out in like in October, I think, didn't it? At least in North America. But I finally finished it a week ago. Like I said in the Crooked Man LP, this is going to be going up around the time of when we talk about it on the podcast. So this will be going up a little bit after I finished it. But yeah, I finally finished Dragon Quest Heroes: The World Tree's Woe and the Blight Below. And so I'm going to review it now, like I do with all the stuff that I play and watch that I actually finish and feel like reviewing. And I guess I should start off with the real reason why it took so long. There are a couple of reasons, but the main reason was just that it just kind of fell on the back burner, to be honest, because it came out the week before Tales of Zestiria came out in North America, and I was already playing Shenmue 2 around the same time, like before both of the games were out. And so once Zestiria came out, I was mainly focusing on that. I just focused on that, while obviously playing Extreme Butoden on my 3DS, But then after I finished Zestiria, I then went back and finished Shenmue 2, which I was almost done with, but that still kind of took like a couple of days, maybe even a day. And then after that, I continued with Dragon Quest Heroes, but it still took a while due to reasons I'll get into during the review. Actually, a bit of a complaint, to be honest. But yeah, if you didn't know, Dragon Quest Heroes is a game, obviously, for the PS4, and it was released for the PS3 as well in Japan, but I think in Europe as well, we only got the PS4 version, not that it mattered. And yes, for those of you who are wondering, after seeing the cover art, I did get the Day 1 edition, so I got like the slime weapons. But this is a Dynasty Warriors-esque Dragon Quest game. It's still an RPG though, and personally I would consider it more of an RPG than a Dynasty Warriors game, and I'll get into that as we do the review. But yeah, my first Dragon Quest game I ever finished, if you can consider it a real Dragon Quest game. I have played 8. I have played Dragon Quest 8, and I think I might have played one other. I don't remember playing any other, but I know I've played a bit of 8, so I did recognize some of the characters. I didn't play enough to have like a good understanding of like the common tropes of this game, and the localization is really stylized, I will say that. It's the voice acting is, and I would assume also the writing because of it, is very European. Lucius and Aurora and Doric, they do the British accent. In fact, only Terry and Patty only speak with an American accent. Though, interestingly enough, the game does have dual audio, but that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is when you go into the menu to like switch the language, it notes that the dialogue will differ in the Japanese version, which I found kind of interesting to note that most games don't really do that. And because of that, I feel like the European thing I feel like that was a particular choice for this specific game. I think they were going for a thing. I think they were trying to give it sort of like this, you're bringing in different people from Europe. And to be fair, Dragon Quest, I feel like, is a bit more of a European game, and it's not. And Dragon Quest 8, which I think was the first one to have voice acting, it had like all the actors. I don't know if they were European or not, but it did have all the characters had European accents. I do believe that Yangus's English voice actor is returning from Dragon Quest 8, which was cool. He did sound a bit different than what I remembered, but in general, I thought the voice acting was fine. I mean, the whole general European thing didn't really bother me that much, and like I said, it really was with Kirill and Alina, or however you say her name, where it was more European than just like British. I actually really like Doric's voice. I kind of, looking at him, I felt like if they had gotten like a Californian cast or a American cast, he would have been a Jameson Price character, and I'm actually kind of glad that they went the route they did in terms of the voice casting and the and whatnot, because I felt like getting Jamison Price or someone like that to do like this big booming like kingly voice for Doric would have been kind of expected and kind of a what's the word? I guess overdone or overrated. Overrated is probably the best word for it. And one thing that it was both kind of cool and kind of annoying, but on the PS4 version at least, during like cutscenes and like when you're talking to NPCs and how sometimes they'll have a voiced like comment while they're talking, like it on the PS4 version it would come out on the speaker, and it was kind of funny because it was also coming out of the TV. It wasn't like Saint Seiya Soldier Soul where it just came out of the speaker. You got to hear both, and there wasn't any way to like change, or I think there was, but like it I didn't really like it, and I kind of got used to it, and it was kind of nice when if I was like just playing the game and listening to something else, and I could still hear the game audio as well. Yeah, so anyway, onto the story. The story is basically you play as either Lucius or Aurora, though Lucius's Japanese name is Akuto, or I would have called him Akuto, and Aurora's is Mar or Mare. Like I had it in my mind, like, okay, this is what I'm gonna call them if I get the game. You can rename both of them. You can't rename any other character. And I think I was given the impression that that some of the other characters had different names in different languages. Like apparently Terry was called Tommy in one language. I don't think the North American version has alternate language options. I think the only, in terms of language, we just have the either English or Japanese voices. But anyway, so it takes place in the Kingdom of Arba, and there's this big festival going on. And in the world of Arba, I don't remember if that's the name of the world or not. I'm pretty sure it's Arba, though. They live in a world where monsters and humans are friends, and they're doing this big festival and whatnot. And then from what I remember, this dark mist comes in, and all the monsters start attacking everyone. And so Lucius and Aurora are like, "What's going on?" And they find King Doric, who's like their king, obviously, because he's King Doric. He's actually pretty cool. And they all band together, and they're all like, "We got to find out what's going on. We got to protect our kingdom." And so they go through like each like little town and like gather info. And while they're doing that, the other characters from Dragon Quest come in. Obviously not every character. And they also meet a new character named Isla, who's specific to this game. She's sort of like the, I don't know what you'd call her, but she's a ranged character because she has a boomerang and she can use a little gun thing. She likes machines and like making mechanical stuff. And there's also like there's a bit of a plot twist with her, or not really a twist, but like I guess a twist, because I guess if you wouldn't expect her to be this kind of thing, but yeah. So ultimately, they figure out that Lucius and Aurora are the children of light. They have like this special power that they can like learn to get, and there's this thing called the Circle of Light that their friend, that they think their friend Helix, who's a slime, who didn't turn. I think it was probably the Circle of Light that kept him from turning evil. Either that or the fact that he was with everyone, or I don't know. Maybe slimes aren't affected, and maybe they're all like, we're just gonna fight you anyway. But Helix, he was one of the monsters that remained good, and they think that he had the Circle of Light, but it turns out that, quote unquote, it was fake. And I'm saying that in quotes because they kind of retcon it. Spoilers. But they find out that the main bad guy is a guy named Velasco, who's like this evil guy. I think he calls himself like a child of night or something. He works for like it's like the idea of like light and dark. There's like the children of night, and like I don't remember specifically what he identifies himself as, but he's probably the most un-Akira Toriyama looking character in the entire game. In my opinion. Oh, by the way, yeah, Dragon has... I'll get to that later, the art. But yeah, he's all like, "I'm trying to resurrect this evil dragon, Shadroth." To restore balance to the world, monsters are meant to fight each other. And what ultimately happens is that Aurora actually gets and I say this from my perspective because although I started as Lucius, I chose Lucius because I just wanted to play as Lucius. I liked his fighting style, seemed more up my alley, even though I'm pretty sure Aurora, even though she uses a fencing saber, or a foil or whatever, her fighting style is actually more like a slashing sword. Although I'm pretty sure she does do some stabbing, but like from what I remember, from what I think I remember playing, I'll probably find out when I'm actually like playing the game to record the footage. Be like, oh, she actually plays a lot different. Yeah, in fact, I'll play as her a little bit just to kind of freshen things up a little bit. Might even play as Terry a little bit, even though I kind of don't like him. But yeah, Aurora, she gets taken in by like the darkness, and you lose her for a little bit. And I speculate that if I had chosen Aurora, Lucius might have been taken away, and they were really close. So Lucius was pretty broken up. I guess I'll take this time to quickly kind of go over their whole thing. Lucius is very much the strategy and logic man. And, he's always like, I found the perfect strategy. You see, we're going to attack from their side and then attack them from their front and stuff. I'm doing a terrible impression of him. I actually like his voice a lot, but Aurora's usually like, oh, like, can you be quiet? Like, can you shut up? And I think, like, the first one was like, oh, are you still going? And it's kind of funny how, like, she interrupts him. And she usually actually summarizes his strategies, like, in a very, like, quick way. And I thought that was kind of interesting how they I don't know if I'd call that or I guess plot, like how they got more of the story out that way. I guess how they kind of used Aurora as being sort of like a decoder for Lucius in a way. This game is very stylized, with the British voice acting and the way it's written. So I imagine the writers probably use this to give Lucius a lot of like warlike terminology and like strategic terminology. Even though I feel like this game was written and marketed for the British audience, the European audience, but some of the stuff they say did seem pretty American to me. Like I said, Terry, and he and this other chick, Patty, they're the only ones with like American accents. But even then, like, of course, since I speak English, it wasn't really that hard for me to understand. But like Alina or Alana, however, I still don't know how to say her name, and Kirill, they had like sort of I don't know what I'd call it, like Polish, Russian, or something. Someone who actually knows what they're talking about can probably let me know. And really, for the most part, most of the characters actually had, I think, British accents. Like Nera and Bianca had British accents. Yangus obviously has sort of like a really sort of like country kind of thing. Whereas Jessica, she had her British accent. Like really the only three characters in the party who don't really have an accent, or who have a different accent, are Kirill, what's her face with the hat, Alana. I'm pretty Tsarevna is what Kirill constantly calls her, and Terry being the quintessential American. And it's funny because they got a British guy to do an American accent. I don't know. I think part of it is because I guess Terry's like really popular. I don't know. Yeah, and with that in mind, going back to Lucius and Aurora, Aurora's a bit of the hothead. She's usually she's a woman of action, I guess, as opposed to being like really cautious. You can kind of see it in their design a little bit. I couldn't really see any sort of like show for it besides their colors. You know, Lucius wears blue because, you know, he's cool, he's calm, he tries to be level-headed. Aurora wears red because, you know, she's hot-blooded, she's aggressive, she's a woman of action. You know, that's the way I saw it. But yeah, after that, which is kind of where I remember most of the stuff, mainly just because it's more recent in my memory. Lucius goes through this trial, or I imagine I'm gonna say Lucius for a lot. So if you don't get upset if I say like, wait, no, it's Aurora, because I really think that it's I imagine someone can probably correct me as well, but I'm pretty sure if I were to have chosen Aurora, Lucius would have gotten captured, unless it's like just a story thing that the damsel in distress. I don't know, but yeah, I played as Lucius, so and go to the Shrine of Scales, fight that big dragon, get more powerful, get Aurora back, who she comes back in like right as you finish the trial, and it seems to me like I couldn't really tell if like Velasco had control over her, or if she was like, I mean, like if Velasco was in her body, or if Velasco was or if she was corrupted by the darkness. I think it was a darkness thing. I don't think they would have. I think it was the darkness thing. You fight like this evil demonic thing of her, and you win. They become friends again. She's all like, I was in Velasco's head. Actually, that's a pretty good, strong indication that it was like mind control thing, or a body control thing. She's like, I was in Velasco's head. You know, he doesn't want to restore balance. He just wants to take over the world, and so he's all like, oh, well, he's a douchebag then. And while they're doing this, they're also trying to figure out the situation with the World Tree, because that's sort of like that's their way of, that's been like their source of like making the monsters nice, from what I remember. And they're trying to figure out how to like, it's a little like corrupted, and it's like dying from all the darkness, and they need to find a way to restore. And it turns out that Isla is actually a mediator, and she comes from like this village that like serves as like protectors of the World Tree, Yggdrasil, if you will, you know, kind of like, you know, in Tales and other stuff, and other games that do the whole World Tree thing. And so they go to Isla's home village to get the, I think it's dew. I think it's a type of dew or something, some sort of like potion to like heal the tree. They heal it. Turns out the monsters are still not completely fixed. It's because Velasco is a jerk and is still doing mean stuff. So they go to this thing called the Fault, and they go to fight Velasco. And they did this really kind of, that I was almost kind of expecting them to do this, just because it was getting really cheesy. Like after they defeat Velasco, he's like, I've seen the light. I have to end my life. And he makes like this giant sword, and like he's about to stab him. And Aurora's like, you don't have to kill yourself if you've seen the light. And he's like, my time is up, dear child. And then he's all like, well, at least I can kill you all. And it's like, I'm just kidding. And I'm like, really? Really? Of all the things to do, like, again, I was kind of expecting / slightly hoping they would do it, but yeah. So, and he does this thing like, oh, we just need to have the Yggdrasil seals weakened long enough for Shadroth to like fucking come back to life. He's only moments away. And obviously, you know, he being Shadroth gets resurrected. You know, obviously they're gonna resurrect the dragon. This is called Dragon Quest. If we're not fighting a real fucking dragon, then it's not a real game, or it's not a real Dragon Quest game. I know nothing about Dragon Quest, besides Yangus. And so like they go to escape, and at this point is where we get near the end. Lucius is like, okay, so here's what we'll do. Let's put all of the townspeople inside the castle, and then we'll fight Shadroth like out in like the streets or whatever. And it's kind of funny. There's a funny scene where like Dork's like, Dork's like, I can sum it up for you, and like, or like he sort of like adds to it, and everyone's like, oh, good job, King Dork. And then Lucius is all like, but it was my strategy. My strategy. Oh, we must rethink our strategy. I heard that so many times because I kept like getting close to like dying, and sometimes I did die, because later on the game actually got kind of hard for reasons that I'll get into as we continue. But yeah, basically, so last few missions of the game, you know, clear out the castle so there are no monsters in it, rescue any stragglers is what the word I'm looking for, and get them into the castle, then fight Shadroth. Oh, it's not working. Oh, and of course, it's kind of funny because, like, it's not working, but, like, beforehand, they're like, oh, we don't have the Circle of Light, so Shadowroth's going to be really hard, right? And Aurora's like, well, do we really need it? With the power of friendship, we will prevail. We will succeed. And everyone's all like, yeah! And they try and it doesn't work. But then it turns out that friggin' Helix, his crown was the Circle of Light the entire time. And I felt like they were going to pull that. It's like, wow. It's like, what else would it be? You're not giving us any hint that it's anywhere else, or that someone else has it. And it turns out that, like, the way he had to activate it was, like, through courage. And with that, he's able to take away some of Shadroth's dark mist, so they're able to do enough damage to actually stand a chance. And then the big battle where you defeat him, where I basically spammed what I'll call for the time being my Muso attacks, because that's basically what they are. They're called coup de grace in this game. When you go into, like, in, like, your, it's more like Samurai Warriors, where you have, like, a burst mode, in which Lucius turns Super Saiyan, which I think is actually kind of cool. And then you can do your coup de grace, and I spammed those near the end. And AJ was over as well watching me, and I just kept spamming, because you learn from this short guy who kind of reminds me of... not to kind of get a little bit ahead of myself with reviews, but Monaka from Dragon Ball Super. I kind of get a similar vibe from him. Except that Monaka, I'm pretty sure, isn't a teacher. But you get, like, some training from him, and he teaches you how to, like, take your high tension from level 25 to 50 to 100. And it can do a lot of damage that way, so it was really useful. And I spammed it. Then they have their big party. It's like, oh, sorry, we gotta go. But we're friends. And then Maya from... fucking, I don't remember which track. She reminds me of someone from 8, though. I don't think she's from 8, though. I think she's from, like, 5 or 6 or something. I don't remember. It's like, well... It's like, it's not necessarily goodbye. It's more like, see you later. And so they're like, okay, bye. And then, near the end, it's Lucius and Aurora kind of standing on, like, this balcony thing, and Lucius is all like, this doesn't mean it's the end of all evil, you know, there's some worlds we don't even know about, so we need to stand together and shit. And they hold hands, and they're all like, yeah, let's do it together. And she doesn't actually talk like that. Patty does, like, the Southern Belle kind of thing, like the Southern Seducer, maybe. It's definitely something that I have heard before, being a Southerner. And the credits roll, and yay! So that's the basic story, like, sped up, and I'm probably missing some details there, but that's just to make sure I cover all bases. Gameplay, honestly, I like it. It does feel a bit different than, say, Dynasty Warriors or Hyrule Warriors. Hyrule Warriors, I felt like, was more a Dynasty Warriors game, and I was playing it recently, and it even looks more like a Dynasty Warriors game. Dragon Quest Heroes, if I was to compare it to another Dynasty Warriors-like game that Tecmo Koei has made, I think it would be more like a game called Trinity Souls of Zilol for the PS3, where it plays like Dynasty Warriors, but it's more instance-based, and it's more like an it's more like an RPG that's stylized in Dynasty Warriors. Like, they took the Dynasty Warriors battle system and put it into an action RPG, and this game even has, like, a dodge roll, which was apparently in Samurai Warriors 1, and this is the first time I've ever had a dodge roll. I did use it a little bit, and it was pretty useful, especially if you wanted to get out of the way quickly. But you had, like, your combos and whatnot, and you could press, I think it was R1 on the controller, and it would bring up, like, a couple moves you can do, and for example, with Lucius, you know, he had, like, Inferno Slash and Flame Slash. And then he also had Zap, which would turn into Zapple, which would then turn into Kazapple. And he also had Zoom, which you could, like, teleport but on the map after you got, like, certain points. I will say I didn't really like the names for sort of the Kaboom-like attacks. Personally, like I don't know, because I understand why they did it because they wanted everything to be consistent, but I felt like in this, the main thing I feel like is that it was just kind of hard for me to sort of mentally say Kazap and like Kaswoosh. Like Kaswoosh is like the main thing. I would have gone with Badoo, like the swooshers. Like that one's actually kind of hard to like. Kathwack I think is actually kind of fine, and Kazap is okay, but Kaswoosh, I don't know. They might have. I don't know what their entire what their writing schedule was. They did a lot of like regular names, and they would go super and then Uber, which I think was fine. And you know, that I don't know this world and this series that well, so I don't really have too much of a right to complain too much. From what I understand, Thwack, it's like a big thing with Kirill apparently, because apparently his coup de grace is a friggin' thing on Thwack. Because someone uploaded footage of him doing his coup de grace with the Japanese voices, which I might sample a little bit, not necessarily in the video footage for this review, but like on my own time. So yeah, I feel like the game it's more like a, I guess to put it simply, it's more like Trinity Souls of Zilol. So if you've played that, you kind of know what this game is like. It is a bit different, because I feel like they wanted this game to be a little bit more Dynasty Warriors, and I feel like because of its Dynasty Warriors nature, later on and with certain missions, it got a little sort of overwhelming with some of the enemies, and a lot of the later missions were just like, oh, protect this one spot, or oh, protect these people, or escort this person, and then like they would send you like these like giant golems and like this T-Rex with an axe and a giant slime that's green with a hat on it, and then like this friggin' like chimera thing ultimately. And you know, for one boss fight we had to fight this giant statue that didn't have hardly any animations at all. He would just like kind of turn and stomp, and he was pretty tough, and I felt like the game kind of overwhelmed me a couple of times. Usually by like the third, by like the third or fourth retry, I was able to win, and thankfully the game lets you start over from the beginning, like without like doing a game over. I don't really know, honestly. Like I can kind of see it because they let you keep all your gold and experience that you've accumulated in that battle, but they don't like recharge your or give you back your heal stones, which are like, you know, stuff you can heal with, and they don't give you like potions or anything. They very much try to make it work within the Dynasty Warriors kind of battle system, which I think is fine. It's also not multiplayer. I heard the second one will be multiplayer though, which is cool, and I might pick it up. I'll get to sort of like where this game makes me stand on Dragon Quest near the end, but yeah, I felt like the game got a little overwhelming at times. It may have been because I wasn't like timing my dodges that much, and I wasn't really using the dodges that much anyway, or guard that much. But the thing is, even though again I say it's more like Dynasty Warriors than a Dynasty Warriors like clone, like Hyrule Warriors is, it still is fucking Dynasty Warriors. So I would just like slash and whatnot. Like it became one of those games for me where it's like I didn't expect it to get that much harder, but it did, and I guess good on them for that. But I do feel like, at least for me, I guess ultimately it kind of gave me some conflicting messages on what this game was trying to do. Because on one hand, it's trying to be I was about to say well balanced, but that would be kind of contradictory of what I just told you. Because you know, it's like, I think this game's overwhelming. Oh, but it's balanced. No. On one hand, it's trying to be like an action RPG with some strategy involved, like in a way, just from the standpoint of how Dynasty Warriors is. Because personally, I see at least the Empire's game is a bit more strategic than most people give credit for. But on the other hand, it's trying to be like your typical like Dynasty. Let me rephrase that. On one hand, it's trying to be, you know, a strategic action RPG, but on the other hand, it's trying to be the beat 'em up and like button mashing and like big fighting game. Not fighting as in like an actual fighting game like Street Fighter, but fighting in that meaning you fight people kind of game that Dynasty Warriors partially is. Because again, I do think there is some strategic elements to it. I don't know if it's not a real-time strategy, obviously, but especially the Empires games have a bit of strategy to them. It's I guess the idea of like war simulator, maybe, I don't know. So, and I felt like because of that, I expected it to kind of be more like Dynasty Warriors, like typical Dynasty Warriors, like slashing stuff. I'm probably not making any sense. Essentially, I guess, just to wrap it up simply, and not so that I'm dragging on this one fucking point, I felt like the game was giving me some conflicting messages internally and subconsciously of what it wanted to be, and because of that, I kind of played it the way it looked to me, and I feel like that's kind of fair. I think ultimately where this goes is I feel like the game was a little too hard. There's not a difficulty setting as far as I remember, but and again, like, it didn't take, like, honestly, it might have had to do with me not necessarily knowing the enemy very well, because like the second to last mission where you are trying to where they've put everybody in the castle and you need to find some stragglers who are just kind of walking around. This one fucking guy is like, I'm looking for my wife. And Lucy's like, don't worry, we will find your wife for you. And so he's like, I'm going to retrace my steps. And so you go across the whole fucking map and to ultimately do a big circle and then take it down to like this one like tiny area. But like there are a bunch of enemies like lying around, and especially since you don't even go back that way, it's a bit, because actually when you do find the wife, you actually technically go back at a quicker way than you initially came, if not just because the length is a bit different. But there are a bunch of all these enemies, and there's even one with like, oh, there's a bunch of enemies, use this giant cannon thing called a spellcaster to like, take down a bunch of enemies, because it got to a point to where they were giving more and more big enemies, and, there are these things called night moths, which basically respawn enemies until you kill the Lord of the Night Maw, which they got stronger as time went on. It got to the ones that were probably the most annoying were the monkey thingies with wings, and because they kept like either freezing me or putting me to sleep or staggering me or poisoning me. It's like it got so annoying. It's just like how are you breaking through all of my defenses every single time I attack you? And of course, Dork would come in because he's a big tough guy. He's like the strongman, so he would like kill the guy in like one hit or like 2 hits, and we'd win and be like, I'm not satisfied. I need to kill more enemies, like the slimes and the golems. So that mission in particular was kind of annoying, but it only took like a second try to really do it. And same with like the final training mission with I think his name's Gragworth, I think, who teaches you the higher levels of high tension. Like the first time I did it, I got to like the part where you're supposed to use your coup de grace on the enemy and like kill it. Like it's the final test. Like use this on this one tough boss enemy that's only gonna get hurt by your coup de grace. So, and I got to that and I died because he was like doing a lot of damage. And the second time I died again because I don't know what was going on. I just kind of lost my game, and I don't mean my save data or the game itself. I mean I lost like my stride, I guess. But then when I tried it again the next day, I was able to, or I think it was either the next day or like right after. But I was able to win basically. So I feel like I don't know if I'd say this game is ultimately medium difficulty, just because I feel like, if it takes me just a second time to get it right, I don't know if that's necessarily, like, hard. The hard levels are the ones that take you, like, multiple times to get it right. Whereas medium, it's like, okay, you messed up, like, once or twice, maybe even 3 times. But after that, on that 4th try, you finally get it. And that tend to be the case with some of them. Most of the time, it was just 1 or 2 retries for me. But one thing I did like in terms of grinding, and this is actually kind of cool from a Dynasty Warriors standpoint, there'd be some missions that, as far as I could tell, They were just meant to just give you like hordes and hordes of enemies, like an endless fight thing. I never finished any of them because I would do it just for like grinding and like getting more gold and getting some levels. And then they would give you like an evac spell that you could use to like exit out of place, and you would keep all your stuff. And it would like run by all your experience and whatnot, and give you more stuff, which was cool. Or rather give you all your stuff, and like sometimes it would give you like drops that you got and experience and gold. You know, it would keep all the stuff that you earned from like that fight, and that was cool. I did recently try one of the quote-unquote DLC missions, because for the North American and European version, they gave us all the DLC, including, what's his name? Pissarro or Sorrow or something. He's like the guy from the same... He's like, I think he was the antagonist from the same world as Kirill and Alina. I'm pretty sure it's Alina. Oh, yeah, I think... Oh, Maya's also from their world. I think I said she was from Terry's. Sorry. She's from... Maya's also from Kirill's world, so what? That's what? Dynasty... I almost said Dynasty Warriors 5. Dragon Quest 5, I think. I'm not certain. I might have to look it up on the website or something. But, where was I? Oh, yeah. And so, he would show up randomly during, like, World Tree battles and be like, you need some help? And he would just, like, kill the bad guy for me. And, like, kill, like, a bunch of enemies for me. He's like, okay, there you go. And he would just leave. And be like, what the fuck? That happened the second time, and then I figured out that there was a mission where you had to fight him, and of course he destroyed me. I didn't actually... It was after I had beaten the game, so I was like, oh, I'll just see kind of what's going on. I just wanted to see for myself. I wasn't expecting to, like, play through, to, like, actually try to beat him this time. I just kind of wanted to see what it was all about. He was pretty tough, though, and he seemed kind of cool, I guess. And he uses a big sword, which made me kind of wonder why Kirill wasn't using his, because when you talk to him in, like, the bar place, he mentions that, oh, I see you like using swords. You know, I once used swords as well, but I switched over to spears. And even though I didn't actually know, like, to be honest, like, for all I know, he could have just been doing small talk, but I thought, like, wait a second, is that supposed to be, like, a reference to something? And I looked up a picture of his game, like, the cover art, and I saw a picture of him doing his pose, the same pose that he does in this game in his character art, but he had a longsword. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Oh, so he had a secondary weapon. And from what we've seen of Dragon Quest Heroes 2, I do know that Angelo is in it. And I do know him because I did play the demo that came from Shonen Jump, and so I know that he uses not only a sword but also a bow and arrow. And of course, they're giving him the bow and arrow just to make him more what's the word, unique from the others, because, you know, we already have like 3 people using swords in this game, at least, with Lucius, Aurora, and Terry. Lucius and Terry probably playing more similarly than one would probably like. I find it kind of weird that he even has a shield. I don't know. Part of it is like Lucius is very clearly a knight. Especially in status, because he is a knight. He's like a general, I think. They keep calling Terry a swordsman, and I don't know. When I hear the word swordsman, I don't think shield. I just think sword. It might just be because I'm so used to seeing characters like Trunks, or recently what I'm watching right now is Garo Crimson Moon, and stuff like that, where the characters just have a sword. Which is kind of funny in Garo's case, because he's a Makai Knight, but he only has a sword. He don't have no shield. I'm getting ahead of myself. Talking about stuff that ain't important. But yeah, that was kind of cool. But I do think I do feel like Terry probably should have just had like a sword. I imagine in his game he can also use a shield. I imagine. I'm just taking a guess. And I know this game is very kind of retro, or the series is very retro. It was like what, the first JRPG, or like considered like the grandfather JRPG. I don't know if I'll call it a pioneer, because obviously that's Final Fantasy, but like the grandfather JRPG that inspired like all the others. And I know that like swords and shields, that's pretty typical for games like this. I feel like this entire game, the story has a very, very sort of retro cheese to it. Like, oh, our goal is to defeat the bad guy, and Ultimately it's to defeat the bad guy. Oh, there's this big monster who's going to come in. Obviously the plot is a bit more complex than that, in that oh, monsters are turning evil, they were once our friends, what's going on? Oh, they're being corrupted by darkness, by the power of friendship and acid reflux, we will win. Not by acid reflux, that'd be weird. It's like Aurora just barfs on the enemy. He's like, bleh. Sorry, I had pizza. I had meat lovers pizza from Pizza Hut. Speaking of Terry, to kind of go back to Terry a little bit, it's a bit of an inside joke with Stan and Ryo, and Lady Sheena as well, I would imagine, that I don't really like Terry, because he's a bit of a jerk. Like, I remember, like, when I first I'm like, oh, that's so cool, he's like the Trunks of Dynasty, I keep saying Dynasty, he's the Trunks of Dragon Quest. Oh man, I'm gonna really, even though, clearly, the Trunks of Dragon Quest is Angelo, because he looks like fucking Trunks. And I was like, oh, Terry's gonna be so cool. And I get to him, he's like, oh, you're an asshole. He's like a bit of an asshole, like, get out of my way, I'm stronger than everyone. And even Lucius kind of doesn't really like him that much. And, like, I made a point, it's a bit of a joke, I don't actually hate Terry, but I made a point not to use him, because, like, you're an asshole. I mean, he's not as bad as David from The Crooked Man, obviously, but, for those of you who've been watching that, or any of the other asshole characters. And he does kind of redeem himself. He is kind of sort of like the, I'm a stone cold bitch, and I don't need friends. I'm a lone wolf. I go my own path, kind of thing. And he's always like crossing his arms, being like, edgelord. He's not really an edgelord, in my opinion. He just thinks he's better than everybody. He's just a bit cocky. But even he kind of warms up to Lucy's. But he does have some funny lines. I might try to include like a picture or two in the description for those who want to see it, because I did take pictures of some funny stuff. I even uploaded one to Facebook, and every time he would say something, I would just be like, shut up, Terry. And there's even one part where it's like, you get Maya, and she sees Terry, and like, oh, you're pretty sexy. You should be my boy, basically saying, like, let's get together. And Terry's all like, can you stop? I'm working on something. He's like, oh, come on. And then Terry's like, you don't want to deal with what I'm capable. You're not able to handle what I'm capable of. I'm like, shut up, Terry. And Maya's like, oh, you're snappy, and you're also young as fuck. Go away. I'm gonna date Kirill instead. I actually like Kirill. I think Kirill's cool. He is a man, honor, and duty, and he's scared as shit, but he's cool. I don't know, I thought he was cool. I kind of like all the characters, so I really kind of connected more with Yangus. It was kind of cooler to see him, I think, and I did use him a little bit. He was a bit slower. My team ultimately ended up being Lucius, Doric, Isla, and Yangus. It started off being Lucius, Aurora, Isla, and Doric, but I took out Aurora for when I lost Aurora, I put in Yangus because I'm like, oh, I want Yangus. Because I think at the time he was at the highest level. Because I think it was before you get Nera and Bianca and Maya. I did try using Maya a little bit just because she was the highest level. And I'm like, I don't know. The highest level, I was in like my 30s, like 30. I think 36. I think everyone's like in a, I think my team is in like a 36, 35, 34 range. While I think Terry's like 26 or something. But the music was nice. I only recognized like a couple of tracks, like the battle theme from Dragon Quest 8, where it's like doolulu doolulu da 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 doolulu doolulu da 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 da. That's the only one I knew. And then like I really like the victory theme that played after you finished a mission. It was like doolulu do do do, something like that. I'm listening to it in my head because I'm trying to remember it. Doolulu do 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 doolulu do do do, something like that. You've probably heard it already. I do, and I also kind of like, speaking of which, that they put like a stream notice, so like they let you know exactly like what they want, which they said, you know, like you can stream the gameplay, but if you're streaming just to like play the music, then you need to stop. I haven't tried streaming through the PS4 with this game in particular. This is the first time this game is even going through the Elgato. I haven't even touched this game with any sort of like streaming thing. That tends to happen with a lot of the games. But hub world was kind of nice with the sky loft, I think it's called, or whatever it's called, like the sky thingy. But I felt like they kind of I felt like there was this one part where it's like I didn't really it felt like they were trying to sort of like rationalize the stuff you did in the game. Like, this is a special kind of map where you can go to places just by staring and pointing. Because, you know, obviously when you are on the map, you pick with like your joystick, and like you go to a pointer thing and you click on it, or you press on it. I know this game's also for PC, so on Steam at least. So I mean, it's like that wasn't entirely necessary. Like, I don't need a game to like rationalize the stuff that I do. It's like, oh, if you you can fucking, if you see, if you I don't know, like, pay attention to your health bar, the green light inside you will fade as you continue to do battle and take damage. So be sure to fucking open up your phone slot and do it's like I felt like the game was being a little too literal, I guess. Like, I didn't really like how it was explaining what I was doing in the game, like the game mechanic part in the story. I would rather, for this game, I'm sure it's been done before in another game and I didn't mind it, or I didn't notice. But here it's like it was a bit, it just added to the cheese, I guess. I felt like this game's story was kind of cheesy, and I don't think it was necessarily that bad. It was actually kind of refreshing to kind of go back to like these older stories of the goal is to just beat the bad guy and save the world. Like, it's not like, I'm so lonely, so I'm going to become the symbol of all evil and do lion attacks at you. That's a Syria reference. But and I do feel like the game was a bit more it was more on like the medium to like moderate difficulty. It started off medium, then it went over to moderate. I'd say overall, like, honestly, it's since I've played Dynasty Warriors games before, I don't really find them that particularly hard. But I'd say, even besides those couple of things, the cheesiness of the story, I guess, like, you guys know what I'm talking about, like how like they'll explain something that you do in the game within the context of like the story. Like, press the X button, like, I don't know, it kind of bugged me. I just felt like it's like they had to like make sure everything made sense, I guess. I didn't really like that. It's like, it's a video game. It doesn't necessarily have to make sense all the time. But besides the cheesy story, the overwhelming difficulty that kind of ramped up a little too much and sort of expected a little bit more of the player, I did choose to do like the combo-oriented control scheme just because, it's Dynasty Warriors. It's not, I don't know. I guess that's sort of a difficulty setting. I'll have to see what the other one's like, but the cheesy story, the overwhelming battles, the overwhelming difficulty, and that one instance, I'm sure there was another one, but I don't remember any others, of sort of trying to rationalize a game mechanic within the story. Oh, actually, there is something else that I can think of. It's when it happens sometimes early on, especially when, like, before you get the Skycloft or whatever it's called, Skycloud, the little flying ship thing that Isla has. You're in like a little camp, and like after missions, Dork or someone would be like, "We need to go rest." And like, "No, we should go." It's like, "No, we need to rest. It's good to take our rest." And it came off to me like they were trying to explain, like, oh, like in between missions, that's why every time you go to after a mission, you go back to your base. And it's like, to me, it just didn't really matter. I guess that's the main thing. To me, it just didn't matter, and stuff like that I thought was just kind of dumb. I mean, it's a minor thing, but yeah, it did kind of get on my nerves a little bit. I'd say it was a pretty good game. I'd probably give it like a 7.9 maybe out of 10, maybe even 8 out of 10, because I thought it was pretty good. Not that I really rate the game. It's really more about putting my thoughts out on the game rather than like giving it a score. That's what my written reviews are for. Hint, hint. I've actually already done them. If you've been on my website, you've already read them. But they will be getting updated on my new web space. Hint, hint. You already knew that, I'm pretty sure, because I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in another Crooked Man video. But in terms of Dragon Quest, I'm not really sure. I'm probably gonna try Dragon Quest Heroes 2. I might just rent it and sort of see, unless there's some like big day one edition thing where it's like, oh, you get fucking Sora from Kingdom Hearts now, or you get Zhao Yun from Dynasty Warriors as a party member. That would be really cool. And he's designed by Akira Toriyama. Like, it's an Akira Toriyama version of Zhao Yun. Which these design, I'll be honest, and this is probably gonna sound like really bad, but I actually think Akira Toriyama's designs for Dragon Quest are better than his designs in Dragon Ball because they're more detailed. Nothing. I mean, obviously, I love Dragon Ball to death. You've seen the 30th anniversary video, and you've seen all the videos I continue to do on this series. This series being Dragon Ball, not Dragon Quest. That I love Dragon Ball, but I think his art for like his non-Dragon Ball stuff, particularly Dragon Quest, is a lot better because he puts more details into them. Like, even though several of these characters do look like Dragon Ball characters, they have more details to them, so they kind of stand out a little bit more. And they have sort of like a particular design about them. Like, it got to a point where I kind of forgot, like, oh yeah, this is designed by Dragon Ball. And I feel like, or it's designed by Akira Toriyama, not, I mean, he might have used a Dragon Ball to give him more time, but, you know, I feel like that's a mark of a good game where you get so into it that you start to forget sort of the, like the little details that you might have seen. Like, it almost kind of becomes like you're not playing a game from X series, you're playing a game, like just period, a game. And I feel like this game did that. It was definitely fun. If you haven't played it yet, you definitely should give it a try. If you like Dragon Quest and you want to play something more action-oriented. And again, it's similar to Dynasty Warriors, but it's not completely. It's more like Trinity Souls and Zilol, so it's slightly slower paced. You do fight hordes of enemies, but it's like they don't give you like big, massive fields. They give you like big areas, but it's more like mazes or dungeons or whatever. So it's. If you want to play this game, but you're thinking, I'm not really an action kind of guy, then this game is still okay. Plus one, they gave you they have like a control scheme thingy, and I'll probably show it off in the gameplay footage of what I'm specifically talking about. But yeah, I think this game can be user friendly. In certain ways, I do think that it might get a little overwhelming, so keep that in mind. And again, I don't know if the change of the control scheme does that much with the difficulty. I doubt it. I really doubt it. It probably just changes the way the game plays slightly and changes the feel. But you know, it's still a good game, and I kind of want to try a real Dragon Quest game to see if I really like this series enough. I'm thinking I'm gonna try Dragon Quest 8 again. I'll probably wait for the 3DS version to come out, or I might just bite the bullet and like try to find the PS2 version because that's the one I played. And I know that Dragon Quest 7 is also coming out on 3DS, and I know that like half the Dragon Quest games are available on the 3DS, or not the regular DS. Half the Dragon Quest games are available on the DS, and a lot of them are also on the iPhone and like mobile devices as well. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna kind of give the rest of the series a try. I don't know if I'm going to try Dragon Quest Heroes 2 immediately, but we'll see. But yeah, this is Flames Around Iki Tasuke signing out. See you later.